Sometimes it's early on here. You never know. Gotta always be ready. It's out. 57, big number. Guidance 65, pretty big. Solid, really solid.
US stock, US and N&P 500 edge up ahead of Nvidia earnings, down.
It should be enough. That should be enough. Market should hold on this. Can't see a trade down, but don't think it'll be up 10%. It's not a shock and awe. But it's what we all expected. More or less in line, a little better than expected, even including very high expectations. Don't think it's going to hit 200, but very good numbers for sure. That's what people thought would happen. Could sell off if it hits a 195 or 200. I'd even consider shorting it up there. Big numbers though. This is a company that just we were at 64.5. They came in at 65 for guidance, which is even a little bit above what was fairly, elevated number there. So 65% year-over-year growth for next quarter. Keep in mind, in Q2, growth had been moderating. Growth was only 56% in Q2. I'm sure you guys can see that. Growth had gone from, 100% to 90 to 80 to 70 and even hit 60 at one point. Starting to fear that maybe, things would be slowing down. But now they're back at 57, which is an uptick from last quarter, 62% year over year. And then projecting next quarter 65% year over year, which is even faster than last quarter and the quarter before. Companies this big don't grow that fast, right? Companies this big don't continue that level of momentum. So pretty rare for that to happen. Jensen said Blackwell sales are off the charts and cloud GPUs are sold out. Compute demand keeps accelerating, compounding, each growing exponentially. Virtuous cycle of AI. Ecosystem is scaling fast. More foundation model makers, more AI startups, and more countries. AI is going everywhere, doing everything all at once. Again, this is often the best time to sell. Sort of peak euphoria. Look at this candle. Holy shit. Three big green candles in a row. There is going to be a time here where the euphoria, you can pick off a sale. I would wait till probably 200, to be honest. But, remember, markets expected something big here. It's not a strange finding here. They telegraphed massive numbers. So, you could see a dump. That telegraph was very, very clear. Now, at the same token, no pun intended, the price backed off a bit. So I do think we're going to hold on to some gains here, but don't be surprised if you see a sell-off. Don't be surprised if you see 200. It's about the mood of the market. My opinion is the mood's pretty dour. The issue, as I said earlier, is that it's not so much that Nvidia is doing well. We all know that. The problem is where the end market's doing that are driving the Nvidia sales. You buy the computers first, and then you hope to sell the product that you make from the computer. But if we don't see that, then the computer sales are actually a lagging indicator in a lot of ways. Just because the companies feel confident to buy the computers now, they could be chasing FOMO, they could be chasing momentum. There's not necessarily, the end user demand. And, companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, they're prophylactic. They know that they need to buy this stuff before people even want to use it. Question, where the hell is AI actually useful? I mean, I think that's a crazy question. All due respect, Paul. I mean, AI is useful everywhere. Where is AI not useful is what I would say. We use it every day for coding, for all kinds of things. But, if we get close, if we get closer to, 190 or 185, you might consider going long. These were very good numbers. But, what you basically have to look at now is you're saying 65 for Q4. So that's probably going to end up being 67, right? So you're talking about probably on the order of $2 a share, maybe like $1.50, $1.60. And so what does that mean for fiscal 27? And that's a pretty important question, because it could be, they don't give that guidance, but I do think we're going to be looking at an even bigger number than this. So, for example, Street's at 293 for 27, but now, you really could easily see 350 or even 400, I think, as crazy as that sounds. And does that mean we can get $8, maybe even $9 a share of earnings? In which case, paying 20 times is not bad. But again, one of the major questions that all semiconductor companies have to face is, will you see I don't know why they would halt Regeneron for this, but maybe they're halting it for something bigger. Oh, it's resumed. It's resuming. Regeneron's halted for this 8 milligram. That's no big deal. Yeah, this is better for equities, I would say, than other companies, Pluto. I agree with that. It's possible, Lander, yeah. So one of the things to keep in mind is, that semiconductors are cyclical. So even $10 a share in earnings, if that's peak cycle, you don't pay 20 times peak cycle. Now, the point is, we don't know what peak cycle is. We don't even know if we can use the term cycle. It's so difficult to tell what's going to happen. We're in certainly at the very least a quote unquote super cycle, but, semis are always cyclical. It's just sort of something that's happened since the 8086. They're ultimately, you make too many of these chips and they're basically garbage. And sometimes you can't make enough and people will pay anything for them. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. And that's why it's a cyclical business. Automotive flat for the year, visualization up 26%, gaming down for the year. Oh no, gaming down quarterly, up 30 for the year. Okay, never mind. So these were flat quarterly, but up 30, 56, and 30 year over year. And of course, data center, up 66% year over year. They're pointing out the semi-analysis inference max benchmarks. Way to go, Dylan. Some of you don't belong in this chat. But yeah, hard to know what to do here. It's sort of no man's land. You can't buy it, I don't think. I don't think you want to short it either. You could short it if you want to be super cynic and assume that the market's mood is so bad that this is sort of what was expected. And you just kind of say, this is what people thought would happen. Jensen telegraphed this very clearly. He let it out at GTC. Nobody thought that anything but this would happen. So why should it be up tomorrow? Would be the trading strategy here. But Yeah, Hillary Clinton fans are not allowed here. So, you ask yourself, is 20 times, and that's pretty big numbers I'm throwing out there for the next fiscal. Is 20 times next fiscal peak cycle? And peak cycle, you want to pay 5 times peak cycle. You're not going to pay 20 times peak cycle. But the question is, when did the music end, if it ever ends? Now, if it ever ends, that's sort of, too sanguine. That's bull talk. Way too bullish. That's bubble talk. It will end. All semiconductor cycles come to an end. But we're in a very weird one. There's never quite been anything like this, right? There's never been a time in history where you'd make a machine that could think. And so the bulls can easily say, all bets are off. Why would I not pay 30 times next year's earnings for a company growing 100% year over year earnings? Revenue is 65%. If you know anything about business, revenue growth of 65% means earnings growth of, over 100%. So why in the world wouldn't you pay 20 times for that, 30 times for that, 40 times for that? Maybe even 50 times for that. So it's really tricky. That's why the stock market's hard. We can't, you could see both sides of that argument. We've never seen something like this before. This time is different. There's networking numbers in there somewhere. You have Anthropic. You actually have increasing demand. We know this from their guidance, but you know this also from Anthropic signing a deal, OpenAI signing a deal. OpenAI is getting chips for shares. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia today coming out, 500,000 chips for sale. It's a huge amount of money. 600,000 chips. What's that? $24 billion. It's another 24 billion in revenue. They said the backlog was 500 billion. Wild. Neural networks, attention, mechanism, vector multiplication, inference, mixture of experts, softmax, tangent, hyperbolic tangent. Big data.
Big data, machine learning, blockchain, artificial intelligence,
Cross
digital
entropy,
manufacturing, big data analysis,
quantization,
computation, and Internet
float
of Things
or
के R&D को बढ़ावा.
brain float. Rope embeddings. Torch compile. Yeah, big number. Big number, big rally.
Nvidia earnings clear a lofty hurdle set by analysts amid fears about an AI bubble.
We were 195 a few weeks ago. Jensen was at GTC laying the story out. Market sold off. Nvidia sold off. Now we're back to kind of that same price level, but we have more information in hand, and information says expect faster growth, not just the same pace, but even faster. Pretty good. Gradient boosted. XG boost. Streaming microprocessor. Multi-threaded. Parallel processing. CUDA. Coup de Dien. Coup de Blas? Coup Blas? Who knows all the Nvidia libraries? TensorFlow.
U.S. equity markets close higher ahead of Nvidia results.
Keras. Real ones remember Keras. Keras. Jax. TensorFlow. TensorBoard. PyTorch. Pandas.